Hello and welcome, Exiles, to my quest for immortality. I died to a table. I don't want that to happen anymore. I want to be able to misplay horrendously, have my computer disconnect from the internet, and still survive while in the middle of the field during a void map. I want to take as little risk as possible in terms of my character simply is going to just avoid dying by just being too tanky. That's the plan. Now, even then, it's probably still going to end up with me dying, but we'll see how far I get with this plan. Now, when I think tank, to me, I think Trickster is one of the best. There's a lot of ways you can die in PoE. You have to solve for a lot of different offensive things that can hit you, and how do you defend against them. There's degens, there's things that pen, there's things that just hit really hard with Fizz or with spells, there's things that shotgun, there's things that are dangerous because they have a repetitive attack that hits a lot very often. There's things that apply like a deadly ailment or some sort of affliction, whatever it is. There's a lot of different dangers in this game, and I think Trickster offers one of the best packages to try to defend against every single one of those dangers. Now, for starters, this is not a cheap character. This is not a budget character. This is me going balls to the wall to try to make the most defensively capable character I can, because I want to get to the point where I can stand in between a tormented field, all five of them at the same time, and just tank it. That's the plan. Most likely it's going to involve me dying, but I'll go over my plan regardless. Now, to start things off with, you'll notice we have 19,000 energy shield. And one of the ways we hit this, and I think this is very cool, is with the new Oath of Magi. Originally, when I saw this node, Oath of Magi, I didn't think it would work with Trickster, but it actually does. Just notice this. Look at how much we're getting out of our chest piece. Now look at our chest piece. Our chest piece is a high defense crafted chest piece. We have over 2,600 evasion and 580 energy shield. If I perfectly roll this, this has a T2 and it's not perfectly divine. If I perfectly roll this, this could be well over 600 energy shield along with like 2,800 evasion maybe if I perfect rolled it. Point is, this chest piece is getting doubled by Oath of Magi. I put this on, you see we lose about 6,000, 5,500 energy shield. That should give you a little bit of a showcase of the fact that we are getting the benefit of both the evasion energy shield scaling and the ES energy shield scaling. If you do the math, this ends up being about 1,000 flat ES this is giving. So the majority of our flat ES is from this chest piece. You'll see basically it's over half of our flat ES. We're going from 8K to 19K. It's 11K out of our 19K pool. So it's a large amount of our flat ES, and it's how our character is having such a high energy shield pool. Now, getting into the other scaling for defensive layers, we are a Trickster, which means we can go into very efficient suppress, as well as very efficient evasion. You'll notice that we are stacking some int to get ES scaling, but we're also turning that int into evasion scaling via this mastery. So we end up having about 70,000 evasion, and we have 100% suppression. And so what happens with this combination is this means all of the attacks, all the things that shotgun that are attack-based, there's a good chance we evade most of them. Eventually, I'm going to add a Born into the Shadows into this character for 15% DR along with Blind, which should probably take us about to the 95 evade cap. And especially as we put more int in the build, we will continue to get more evasion out of it. Not only that, this pairs nicely with Ghost Dance, which gives us 2k energy shield back every single time we're hit by something. So if we take a decently sized hit, we get a lot of it right back. This pairs awesomely with the new, well, not with the new, with the Trickster suppression, which gives an extra amount of damage suppressed if your energy shield is full. And what happens there is our character right now has 70% suppression if we're on full ES. Most of the time, or a lot of the times, we're not on full ES, but the way it works is, say we have something like an Uber, it's Zeri Flame Blast, and they're charging up, boom, boom. If we have 70% suppression, along with our max res, along with our less damage taken from the triple LE fast mageblood, that Flame Blast, maybe it will hit us for less than 2k, or the first one. You know how there's two of them? Basically, if the first one hits us for less than our Ghost Dance, I believe the way it would work is the first hit calculates out the hit it's going to give us, and Ghost Dance gives it right back, and the second hit will also have to go against that full suppression. I believe that's how it works. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I believe that's how it works. The idea here is essentially a lot of the times we're taking a lot of hits, and a lot of those hits are getting mega suppressed because we have the extra suppression here, we have the mastery with suppress, we have the suppress mastery here, and then we have that which was taken jewel that has another additional 5 suppress if we're on full energy shield. You can actually stack this. I think this is one of the things I might look into doing is essentially, I was thinking about what if I did a gladiator with 100% block, but I mixed it up with the extra suppression, and I go divine flesh, so I never go below full ES, and then I just have this giga suppress. I was thinking like, well, that would be interesting with charms, But actually, now that I think about it, maybe the suppress mod and the max block mod, they might be both a prefix or both a suffix, so you can't get both of them. Something like that might be the case. But anyways, that is one of the things I was thinking about. On top of all that, we are forcing in a mageblood. Mageblood is the best defensive belt. It's not even close. It allows us to go triple LE Flask, which gives us about 40% less damage taken of each of the elements. And then we combine that with going melding by stacking some max lightning res. You'll notice on our helmet we have max lightning res. We have max lightning res on our chest piece. And then we have max lightning res on this node here, along with a little bit of aura effect from sovereignty. And this wheel here, we have a purity of elements that gives us about 8 max res, because is it 8 max res? No, it might be 7 max res. I think I have about 40 aura effect on our purity of our purity of lightning, which ends up giving us a high max res. So the idea here is, for example, I died to a shaper beam on a table. What was the problem there? I didn't have good max res, I didn't have good enough sustain, and I didn't have good enough less damage taken. All of these things address that. I have higher less damage taken. I have higher max res, which makes it deal significantly less damage. And on top of that, my character has pretty good regen. I have about 2k regen right now. I'm looking to increase that number. If I can get some more increases to regen, that would also help. And the idea is, if I sit in a Shaper Beam, I can take it. I've tested this on a fair amount of Uber Shaper, and for the most part, I can literally just stand in the beam and I'm A-okay. On top of that, we are also mixing in the Trickster's Recharge. You'll see I have 6k recharge here. I have this mixed in with Wicked Ward. Essentially what this means is, if we suppress spell damage, half of the time we proc the start of Energy Shield Recharge. If I'm in the middle of a lot of enemies all hitting me, a lot of spells are hitting me, I will constantly be proccing Ward, or proccing Recharge, which won't be just 2k regen. We'll have another 6k behind us to help us zoom back up to full, to get to that suppression cap, to get to our HP pool being not in danger of dying. So that is our sustain. That is our way of survival in terms of that regard. On top of that, the one weakness we have right now is Fizz, which I plan to get more Fizz mitigation for, but currently what we have is you can grab things like a mastery right here, Fizz taken as chaos. This allows you to get 10% of Fizz taken as chaos, and as a CI build, that's just completely damage that's deleted. Along with that, right now we have Fizz taken as on our helmet. This can go up to 8%, and it can also be chaos. Eventually, that's what I'd like to upgrade to. And on top of that, you can get a Delve mod with Fizz taken as chaos. If I can mix that in, we can get by about 28% Fizz taken as chaos, which would be quite ideal for this character. And I don't have it yet, but I want to add in a Watcher's Eye for another 10% Fizz taken as. That takes us to about 38% Fizz taken as, 28 of which can be chaos, which is completely deleted from the game. And then on top of that, I also have things like, in the future, I'd like to grab the 10% less Fizz when on full ES, which would, if there's any big slam coming in, if I'm on full ES, that'll be other mitigation. Of course, Fizz attacks, we evade roughly like 95% of the time, which is going to mean the Shaper Slams, the Elder Slams, a lot of times, those aren't even going to register, they're not even going to hit us. But if they do hit us, we have Ghost Dance, and we have a lot of other modifiers that can basically help defend us against it. I also eventually want to swap out the Heral of Agony I have here. I'm using it for the 20% chance to poison. I want to swap this out and get myself an Arctic Armor, which would be another 20% less Fizz taken as, or not taken as, but less Fizz taken. And a lot of that will help me with physical damage. On top of all that, we are ailment immune using avoid elemental ailments with the Ancestral Vision. We also have 10% less Fizz, or less damage taken here. We also have Solaris Pantheon, which gives a 20% chance to take 50% less damage, along with Fizz DR if there's only one nearby enemy, along with some elemental damage taken if you haven't been hit recently, along with take no extra damage if you have been crit recently. Eventually, I would like to swap this mastery to a enemies poisoned by you cannot deal crits, but I need to set up a cast when damage taken with some poison setups to get that going. And another thing I'm thinking about doing, I said the DR with Born in the Shadows, but on top of that, I also have on my chest piece a mod that gives me less damage taken per intelligence. Eventually, if we can get enough gear, I think we can get maybe close to 1500 to 2k range of intelligence, which is another 10% DR there. We're trying to stack as many of these defensive mechanics as we can to protect ourselves from as many angles of attack. Right now, our weakest is a big physical hit that gets through our evasion, but we have a massive ES pool, and we can kind of defend against that pretty well. And speaking of which, when we're talking about these foiled mageblood maps, these void maps we're trying to run, a lot of them are pretty consistent with certain modifiers. And by consistent with certain modifiers is, I mean, one of the things that would be dangerous to me is like minus max res, and that just doesn't happen very often in these maps. For the most part, people are going for They're going for Delirious. They're going for the less damage. They're going for the things that are generic that apply to the most people possible, and not necessarily the things that would hurt my build. There's even things like the kill enemies on 20% or lower life. This is a very dangerous mod, especially for a lot of life builds, but for me, it's actually a free mod. There's mods like Petrify, which is a very dangerous mod, and this is another reason I picked Trickster. Petrify is an action speed slow, and Trickster gets this action speed node that prevents us from being slowed. So this will effectively counter Petrify. It'll counter things like the Elder Suck and Slow. There's stuff like that. And on top of that, if I want to go really safe, I can just drop damage from Polymath, and I can even pick up Heartstopper to put in more defenses onto this character, which I am considering doing. Real quick, gonna cut this into the video because I forgot to go over it. I forgot to give you guys a showcase, and I forgot to tell you what the build was in terms of what do we do for damage. We are a Blade Trap Trickster. We're using Ephemeral Edge for getting a massive flat lightning damage. You'll notice this weapon says 20% of players' maximum energy shield added to the high end of the blade. So for example, 20% of this is about 4,000. So we have a blade that deals 1 to basically 4,000 damage. And the idea is, with that damage, we are going to poison. We're using the all damage poison tincture because we already want to do Oath of Magi for the big flat ES that it gives us. We decided we'll mix in a poison tincture. Unfortunately, the rest of the nodes outside of this one are pretty useless, like Barkskin I'm not even using. I have it spec'd, but for the most part, you only need 3. So this is an example of a build where you don't need to find the King of the Mist because we only need 3 Ascendancy points, because this one's relevant for kind of just seeing where the feared is. And then we have the all damage poison tincture, and these other ones don't actually do anything for our build. But that being said is Blade Trap, we're poisoning the enemy, and we have a multi-link glove, so that way we don't need any supports in our chest piece is the idea. All right, let's go ahead and get into this map here. This is a Elder Slayers Petrify. I just want to demonstrate some of the tanking capabilities of this character. I think this build will be, or this map will be a good place to do it. If I had one with Feared, I'd showcase you that, but I don't have a map that has Feared on it that is not Voided. And I don't really want to risk a Voided run when I still have some plans to upgrade before I'm going to do the Voided runs on stream tonight. So let's go ahead and just try to figure out where the Elder Slayers is, I guess. I'm not sure what I'm saying. But anyways, we'll look around for it. Hopefully we can find it. This isn't a very good clear speed build. The idea is basically stacking poisons with Blade Trap, which is double delayed damage because you have to wait for the Blade Trap to proc. And you have, okay, here's Elder Slayers. So these are the bosses for, mini bosses for Cirrus. And this is what we look at for tanking all of them at the same time. And basically, a lot of these bosses, if you're doing all these multi-boss phases, there's a decent amount of bosses that proc your energy shield recharge, whereas there's also a lot of enemies that proc, that waste your ghost route. Basically, if you're getting hit by so many enemies at a time, you're gonna keep losing, what's the word? You're gonna keep losing, spacing on this. You're gonna keep losing your ghost routes, right? If there's too many enemies attacking you, your ghost routes won't be as reliable because they'll be wasted on smaller hits. But if there's a lot of enemies attacking you, you also are proccing your energy shield recharge quite a lot, which gives you quite a little bit of sustain. Now I'm gonna kill the those extra guys there because they were making it so some of the guys couldn't attack us. But the idea is, with all these things going on, they're deleting my mana because I'm in the ground effect or whatever. With all these things going on, we're proccing the recharge a lot, which is helping our sustain, even though we would normally just have 2 base sustain. I still need to get more tank in this. I think the tank feared. I would be pretty scared if I was in between 5 feared right now. Granted, I have the ability, if I'm actually playing the game, to run around and dodge things. I don't have to stand there and just be AFK. But this should hopefully give you an idea of what we're doing in terms of tank. I'm going to get out of this thing so I can actually generate some mana. That we'll go ahead and we'll kill these guys. Or keep putting down squares. Stop, man. Stop putting down the mana squares. I can't afford to cast things if you're doing that. We'll finish these guys off. And hopefully that gives you a good idea of what the tank looks like. And the other thing cool about these maps, a side note, if there's a map with a bad reward, even if it has a bad reward, there can be good loot, depending on what other mods are there. A lot of those mods can be highly rewarding in terms of like adding extra drops into the table. So you can get stuff that is rewarding, and certain boss fights and certain things have like, oh, let's see if this has it. Yeah, look at this. 4% chance to convert Charge Compass, 11% chance to convert to Conqueror maps, 13% chance to convert to Maven Invitations. A lot of these maps have mods like this, where you can drop like, you know, Form, Twisted, Elder Slayers, various Elder Slayer maps, there's some value here, even outside of the foiled items. So a lot of times I would even look at that. That might be something where the best in slot Magic Find strategy actually is to do some of these T17 maps with some special mods. I'm not sure exactly, but that could be a thing. Anyways, just wanted to give you guys a showcase of what this character looks like defensively and what our offenses look like in game. This is by no means a good offensive clear speed character. This is fully trying to be a giga tank, and the purpose is to do single target damage while also being as tanky as possible for these voided maps. Anyways, back to the rest of the video. Moral of the story is, I'm trying to make the tankiest character I can think of for the most scenarios. There are some characters that can do certain things better than it, but I don't think there's many characters that are as well rounded. For example, an armor stacker is insane against hit mitigation. An armor stacker at the high end will ignore hits like nobody else's business. The problem with armor stacker, and this is my opinion, I could be wrong about this, is I think it has a degen issue. I don't think it is a build that gets enough sustain to really deal with degens well, and I think that's something that would get me killed. If I tried to go heavy into an armor stacker, I think I would die to a degen. That would be my concern of playing that build, and I think this handles sustain better than that character does. That's my idea, at least I could be wrong about that. But anyways, this is my attempt at immortality. This might be my last video on this character. Today I'm going to stream doing a bunch of void maps to try to make some money, to try to make the best gear possible. My plan is essentially, I'm just going to keep doing these maps, making as much money, invest as much as I can in this character, and send this character to the grave in a blaze of glory. I would think it would be quite hilarious to print a bunch of money, make a bunch of mirror tier items, and then have that character still go to the void. Just a fun little project, and maybe in the way we can have some fun doing it, seeing how tanky we can get this character to be. I don't know how far I'll make it. Maybe I'll die on my first map today, and at that point, I will be forced to reroll. Ultimately, I'm okay if I die on this character because there's a lot of other builds I want to make, and this is just a fun little project to see how far we can take a tanky character and risk it in some of these voided maps. Alright, thanks for watching, Exiles. This is my attempt at immortality. It is a Trickster. I am the Lance Table Destroyer, and I hope you guys have a good day. Thanks for watching, take care, and peace out.